I love to take care of.
How many did you
That
have?
was my job to do it, and that's what I started. That's the way I started out.
How many brothers and sisters did you have?
Well, younger than me, 4.
Uh-huh.
I had a brother that's older than myself, but I didn't have to help take care of him, but the others I did.
What were their names?
Homer, Kenneth, Leola, Ralph. Starting the other way. Ralph was the oldest.
And where did you grow up?
Kansas,
Kansas?
out in the country,
What part of Kansas?
southern.
Southern.
Mm-hmm.
How long were you there in Kansas?
Oh, I lived there until I went to high school there. Then I got married, and I haven't settled down anywhere since. Well, I went to Moline. Moline wasn't too far from Sudan.
What was school like when you were growing up?
Oh, it was nice. I boarded with 3 other girls. We had an apartment to ourselves, and we went to high school. Because we lived out in the country and couldn't go to high school there.
How many were in your class?
22, I believe. And at that time, it was the biggest one so far.
They were all different ages, weren't they, Mother? Or were they all the same age in your class?
Mm-hmm.
Were they all different ages in your class, or were they all the same age?
Well, there were a couple that were older, but most of them were around my age. I had a cousin that was 2 months older than myself. We each tried to outdo the other one. Most of the time, I was able to do my part.
Did you get A's, Mother?
Mm-hmm.
Sure. She was smart, I think.
Maybe I wasn't so smart, but I worked at it. That was the thing.
Tell me about your mom and dad.
My mother came from a big family. So my dad had, let's see, I think there were only 8 in his family, but I believe there were 12 in my mother's family. Let's see.
That's a big family.
How many girls? 4, I believe. 4 girls, and the rest of them were boys.
What were their names?
Uncle
no,
Bill,
your
Uncle
parents.
Bert.
Your parents.
Your parents' names.
My
Mother
parents'
and Dad.
name, my dad's name was Elmer. My mother's name was Nettie. She wound up being Net.
What's her maiden name?
Hmm?
What
Her
was
maiden
her
name?
name?
Wells. Yeah, Wells.
You were a McCain, right?
I was
McCann.
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 Do you remember your grandparents?
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Do you remember their names?
My grandparents was Lucinda Wells and, let's see, what was his name? What was his name?
Grandpa.
I remember my grandfather's name. He had 1 ear off. He had cancer and had 1 ear removed. So that was the beginning of the cancer, as far as I remember it.
And was that on your father or mother's side?
Well, let's see, there were only 2 girls in my dad's family, and the boys. Uncle Warren, Uncle Bill. My dad was Elmer. One of my aunts was Elida, the other one was, see if I can remember her name.
Well, you are doing fantastic with it.
Esther. Esther.
Wow.
So,
Great.
And were your grandparents, do you know if did they grow up in Kansas also?
I think so.
I think so.
My grandparents on my mother's side were farmers. They lived out on the farm. But my dad's family the men were all carpenters. And they were all carpenters except my dad. He had to stay home and run the farm. So they all were wealthy except him.
How did you meet Granddad?
Hmm?
How did you meet Granddad?
Aunt Thelma was responsible for that.
No, I'm gonna get her for that.
Well, not, it wasn't her, it was her husband, who became her husband, rather.
Uncle
Yeah,
Howard.
he worked out on a farm near where we lived. And we went to the square dances. And see, they took me to the dance. He sat in the front seat and I sat in the back. Eventually he decided we could change that. He moved to the back seat. That was the beginning.
How long did you know him before you were married?
Not too long. Not long enough, really.
Shame,
Less than
shame.
a year,
Less than
I
a
think.
year?
Yeah, wasn't it? Less than a year. My father wasn't too happy about that.
Did your parents like him though?
Oh, yes. It was just that, well, I just graduated from high school.
Too young.
Too young. Right. Taught 1 year school after we were married. Rural country school.
You taught all different grades?
There were let's see, I had the 7th grade, 4th grade, and I think 2 beginners. Small school. But it was fun. I enjoyed it.
Did you ever learn to drive, Mother? Didn't you drive on the road?
I drove probably a mile or 2. That
Across
was the
the
size of it.
field. You drove
It
across
wasn't in a field, it was between some fields, out in the country where I wouldn't run into anybody.
Remember what kind of car it was?
I think it's probably a Ford. I really don't know about it.
Model
It's
T
a
Ford. Pop always said.
Didn't.
Model T.
Yeah, that's what he always said.
Yeah, it was a Model T. Let's see. How long were you married before you had your first child?
3 years,
3 years. And you were still in Kansas.
still in Kansas.
And he was a beautiful baby boy.
10-pound baby boy.
Right.
Was he 10
Supposedly it was gas. It didn't have any scales, but the doctor said that's what it was. 10 pounds.
About 10 pounds. No scales when you were born.
That's
a
a
long time ago. Ask her who her favorite child was.
Yeah, right.
Who was her favorite child?
Who was my favorite
Yes.
child? They were all my favorite.
That's the safe answer.
But his father was so happy that he was a boy. That was something special.
Yeah, it's a good thing you had a boy first.
Right.
Of course, you had 4 more. 4 girls.
Let's see.
When did you move to Pennsylvania?
What was Mama like when she was a youngster?
She was a little angel. And the kids were also jealous of the attention she got.
I was
She
Daddy's
was.
favorite,
They
I
were?
think.
Yeah.
She doesn't
They were
remember.
very jealous. Because I was sick. I was a sickly little thing.
You mean you were an angel baby? Like
Angel baby like Michelle.
Michelle, yeah.
Michelle
Just
like her.
I really think she was her dad's favorite. No, I didn't have any favorites.
See, I had that blood poison in my foot when I was 5, and I was almost lost my foot, so I think that made a difference.
Yeah, she did. She had a lot of problems.
Mm.
Up here.
When did you move to Pennsylvania, and why?
Because we were going hungry in Kansas.
That's a good reason.
That was the only reason. We planned to stay for 2 or 3 years. It was 15 years before we got back out there for a visit.
What year was it when you left? You remember?
I was 32 or 33 because I was only a year old.
What was this?
It was either 1932 or 1933.
I think it was 1932. I believe that was it.
I'll ask her about her trip.
How was the trip to Pennsylvania?
Hectic. Hectic. We didn't have any problems really, but we had an old car and the roads weren't like they are now, you know. It was uphill and downhill. Took 5 days, if I remember right, to drive out. So
You said Dorothy had a fever and was sick.
Dorothy was sick when we left home. But we had borrowed money to come to Pennsylvania, and if we stayed there, we would be spending it. So we had to start out. And that's the way we.
Tell them what you ate.
What we ate.
On the way out.
Milk and bread.
What did we eat?
Tomato
We ate a
soup.
lot
Tomato
of
soup.
Tomato soup. That's right. That's what it was. Tomato soup.
And we had a lot of bread and milk meals, didn't we, Mother?
You only had $35 to come out, wasn't it?
That's
$35.
right. That's what we did. And we had $3 left when we got here, I believe.
Right.
My brother came with us. I was so thankful for that because that meant that grandfather didn't have to do all the driving. But he did most of it because my brother didn't drive fast enough.
Daddy always started out at least no later than 4 or 5 in the morning, didn't he? And we never had much chance to stop and use the restroom or anything
No
on our
mercy.
trips during the years. I can remember that.
Yeah, I forgot to ask you about your wedding.
Oh,
Tell me
there was no wedding. There was no wedding. We were married by
Justice of peace.
Justice for Peace.
Did you
And
buy
I've
a new
always
dress
regretted
for her?
that. I've regretted it from the day we were married.
Really?
Did you buy a new dress or did you wear a dress you had
I
already?
made a dress. I had a
made
new
a
dress.
dress?
I made it.
Was it white?
No.
No.
No, it was blue. It's a blue taffeta, trimmed in white.
Wish you'd kept it, Mother.
I did keep it for a long while. I don't know, it must have fallen apart. I
We
don't
were
know.
married, what, August 6th? Was it? 1922?
22.
What else can we ask her?
Did you settle in Newtown Square right away when you moved to Pennsylvania?
Yeah. We lived up about a mile north of Newtown Square.
What was Granddad's first job when he got here?
He worked on the ranch. I mean, not a ranch.
At the lodge?
What's
Geist.
the word I want?
Geist.
Estate.
Geist
It was an
estate.
estate. It was a wealthy man's estate.
President of Philadelphia
Brother-in-law
Suburban
was,
Water Company.
He took
He
care
was
of the
in
grounds.
charge of it. He was in charge of it. At Christmas time, most of the men were laid off. And then he went to work for the water company. He worked there for quite a while. Hated it. He really did. It was shift work, you know. He
hard.
So after that, then he started working at the, what's the name of that place?
Watts.
The Watts?
William,
I've seen Williams.
No, it was
Garrett
Garrett
Williamson.
Williamson.
Garrett
Yeah, that's
Oh,
what
Garrett
I'm trying to
Williamson,
think
yeah,
of,
okay.
Garrett Williamson Lodge.
That's
That's
what
in
I
Newtown
came in
Square,
the
too.
And he didn't think he was gonna like that. He didn't like working for women. He had a grand time there. He really did. They let him do just as he pleased, and he enjoyed it.
Mother used to make her own butter. Remember that? What
Oh,
else?
yeah.
What else did you make, Mother?
Pies.
No.
Good times.
Real good pies.
We used to keep our milk and the butter out in this spring house in this real cold water because we didn't have a refrigerator. We also didn't have a bathroom, did we?
No, we didn't have a bathroom. And you wonder how we got along. Really.
Not even a
We
microwave.
had an outhouse.
Where was this?
We had an outhouse. Wasn't it
Down
that
at
big White House down at the Pine? The White House at the Pines?
Mhm.
And where did Dad work?
Well, that's when he
He was
worked.
at the water company, wasn't he?
Worked at the water company for a while. I don't remember. Went out to the lodge.
Oh, thanks.
Run out of questions.
Mom didn't have a very easy life, Trey.
Hmm.
She really didn't. It was hard work.
Could imagine.
She milked a cow.
Mommy forgot to
She
tell him
milked
about
a cow.
the time he rode the horse. Remember?
Let's
That
hear
sounds- That sounds like a good story.
it.
Almost
Well.
killed herself.
It wasn't very exciting, really.
I thought it was.
Oh, you did?
What happened?
Scared to death the whole way.
Where was this? Where'd you
That's
go?
when we were in Kansas.
You rode a horse?
Hmm?
You rode a horse?
Mhm.
You never ridden a horse before?
I seldom rode a horse. I
But
forget,
what
I
happened?
forget what
Yeah,
the
what
other-
Okay.
You ran into a fence.
No, rattlesnake. Remember? Didn't the rattlesnake?
He had a lot of rattlesnakes out there, but I don't.
Yeah,
Rattlesnake came after him?
you told me that. It scared the horse and the horse.
Oh.
Yeah.
Threw her
Didn't
into a
he
barbed
throw you
wire
off,
fence.
Mom?
Ooh.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so.
Well, how'd you hurt your leg, remember?
Ran into a fence, Mom. Barbed wire fence. That's how you get your leg all ripped up.
No, I did that getting off of the horse. I had a blanket on the horse. There was a blanket. I didn't have a saddle. There was a blanket on the horse with fastened with a big
Strap.
buckle. And I slid off. And that's how I cut my leg open. And it didn't need to go to the doctor. I just wrapped it. So if you want to look at it, well, you can see how it turned out.
Oh, goodness.
Why were you on the horse?
She
Yeah.
didn't
Why was
have
I on the
any of
horse?
her, I don't think she had any of her children in the hospital. Did
No?
you, Mother?
Uh-huh.
Were we all born at home?
Mhm.
Did you have somebody to help you with the birth, or?
My aunt was there for the first one. Some of the family was there. I wasn't by myself at all, but I never went soon in the hospital. A doctor did come. 2 doctors came once. I thought I was really well taken care of. That's when Hazel was born.
That was in Pennsylvania.
Yeah,
not
that was in
Kansas.
Pennsylvania.
Hmm. What did you think of Lloyd?
We don't want to get
Anyway.
into that.
Well, that's
I
not
Do
think
you
we
have
got
to
it.
turn that thing on?
Yeah. No way. This is, I'm gonna
I
make
don't
a,
think we had any objections to it.
Uh-uh.
No.
Now Helen was a different
That's
story.
true.
Still is.
Are there any interesting stories you can remember about them growing up?
How about you on the bike?
Well, that's mine. I got a lot more trouble than that.
We sold worms. We went out.
Oh,
I
Where
made
did
a
we
lot of
go to
money.
gather those
Terry.
worms, Mother?
really?
I bought a car with worm money
Yes, you did.
Really?
when I was
Oh,
15.
I can remember picking them out in the hundreds.
I paid $35 when I was 15 years old for a car. My money.
And he learned to drive it up on the hill.
And I wouldn't let your mother in the car. She would stand on the running board though.
Afterwards,
I
heard
didn't
a
want
lot-
her in the seat.
I heard a lot of things that went on about that car. At the time, I was innocent.
When I came along and made you let the girls in the car, remember?
Why wouldn't you let us in?
I don't know.
He's just being smart.
Being ornery, I guess. You know, I'm a pretty cool guy. I didn't want.
You didn't want your sisters in.
sisters in the car.
What time did everybody get to bed at night?
When their father was there, 9 o'clock was bedtime.
Or
When he was gone, they
earlier,
went to
Trey.
bed when they got ready.
Or earlier.
Or earlier.
I'll never tell you that 9 o'clock stuff. When it got dark, we went to bed.
No questions.
See, he
Okay.
worked on a shift work at these. And of course, part of the time he was there, and part of the time he wasn't. When he was there, 9 o'clock was bedtime.
Mm.
When he wasn't there, I didn't see any reason why they had to go to bed at 9 o'clock.
Dad was the boss, obviously. You got that already.
He was crazy about his kids, though. He made the comment when Lawrence got home, he could have gotten down on his knees and thanked God. But he didn't know about that.
From
I
the
mean,
war.
when he
Oh.
came home from
From
the
the war?
war.
Yeah.
I can't picture Daddy saying that.
I can't either.
I can't picture him saying that,
Well,
but I
he-
just,
that's what he said to me.
did he really? Well, see, he wasn't very open with us. You always knew when he was angry, but you never, you know.
Well, he wasn't the only one that worried about him when he was over there. Many a time I went to Newtown Square to see if I got a letter. I walked to Newtown Square to see if I got a letter.
And you got letters. I wrote.
Hmm?
I wrote you.
They were very good about writing. But I didn't always get them when they were supposed
What
to.
happened?
When he was in
I mean, what happened?
the, oh, that he wrote, he
Well,
wrote.
He got
honey, you
all
write
over
now.
that.
I don't have to write. You write letters.
I
now.
can remember Mother getting a letter from Lawrence with a picture in it of him in his uniform. You had a hat, some kind of a helmet, and the tears.
I remember the picture.
The 4 crosses on
He was a medic in the army.
Second World War.
Second World War.
The first.
He was in the Valley of the Bulge.
Dad was in World War I. I didn't say number 2.
Did Daddy see any combat?
He was in France.
Yeah.
He was.
No,
in-
he didn't. The war ended just before he was ready to. They were all ready. And then when it ended,
When was he there? For how long?
even know just how long he was there.
He was in the artillery. I think he was in like 18 months or something. I'm not sure.
Right around 1918.
It ended
Yeah.
18, didn't it?
1918.
I think it was in like a year and a half.
Was that after you had met him? Or,
No.
No.
He was 8 years older than Mother.
Hmm. How old were you when you got married?
How old was I when?
When you got married?
18.
18?
I just graduated from high school. After we were married a year, I taught school 1 year.
Mhm.
Did you ever have the desire to teach again later on?
Well, I only had a 2-year certificate. I would have had to, you know,
Mhm.
renew, take another examination.
I
guess,
see.
for both.
Did you have any other jobs after that?
Well, I worked for a wealthy woman for a while. Supposedly, let's see, what was it? I cleaned their bedrooms.
Uh-huh.
Didn't go in the kitchen. They had a colored cook. I didn't have to cook. So I worked for her for quite a while.
How many years?
I don't know.
Quite a long time.
That's quite a while. I know that.
Mainly you listen to the problems.
Right. Made their beds.
Yeah.
They had a colored cook, and she was fussy about how her bed was made. She taught me how to make it. So that was my job.
Any other questions?
I'm thinking. You could volunteer some stories if you had it.
I suppose I could. I might say that I have a nice family and I love them all. So have no complaints. Except for the fact that I wish Hazel wasn't there.
One of her brothers was killed by lightning. Do you remember that? What happened that day, Mother?
Oh, yeah.
Was that your older brother?
Okay. Yeah, he was killed by lightning. And we got the message. We lived about 10 miles away from where they lived. And the way the message came through, it could have been all 3 of them. In fact, 2 of the others, my sister and one brother, were knocked out in the same situation. But they lived, and he was killed outright, my oldest brother.
What were they doing?
When they were out?
They were out on the porch, and it was when these thunderstorms came up. And evidently he was standing on a rock. Otherwise, if he'd been on the ground or a wood, it would have, instead of, he wouldn't have gotten the whole shock, and he wouldn't have been killed. But he was killed instantly.
But your sister and brother were knocked unconscious.
They were.
weren't they?
Had a lot of electrical problems in Kansas, very level. Cyclones, electric storms, still do.
Yeah.
Mother's father used to love to listen to the ball games. And I can remember him coming. He came almost every year, didn't he, Mother, on the bus to come out and visit us?
Hmm?
Didn't Granddad come on the bus almost every year out from
Oh, yeah.
Kansas to visit us?
Yes, he came out about every year. He'd work a couple months and stay with us on weekends.
And she inherited his love for ball games, I think.
Yeah, Grandma still loves the Phillies. Even when they're in last place.
Are they?
They didn't, no, they ended up tied for fourth this year.
Did you all have a radio? Nice radio?
We didn't have
We didn't have a
electricity.
radio till we
Ah.
came out here.
Till we came
Till you
out.
came to Pennsylvania.
That's right.
We didn't have a radio out there.
What did you think of TV when it first started out?
Where did we get it?
What'd you think
What
of
did you
it?
think of
What'd
it?
you think?
Oh, that was something special, of course. Yeah.
When did you have your first TV?
Well, it had to be after we got to Pennsylvania, I guess.
Oh, it was.
Had to be
long.
in the 1950s.
Hmm?
Had to be in the 1950s.
1950s sometime. That's when they first came
Because
out.
we got ours in 1950. We watched the World Series.
We got ours in 51.
So sometime around 1950. Were you living in Bremble's house?
No.
Now Upper Darby.
Pennick
But
Avenue?
then they were still at Garrett Williamson, weren't you?
No,
And-
no, they were out the other farm.
Watts?
Down near the,
Watts.
yeah, the Watts farm. That's because that's when I started dating you. We were at the Watts farm, that's right.
I know that's where we lived when Dorothy started going with Bud.
Uh-huh.
That's right.
Mhm.
She was married there.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember them leaving from there to go out to Iowa or wherever they went.
Yeah.
How long were your kids allowed to stay out on dates? How late?
They weren't given any. Were you?
I don't
I don't
remember
think so.
being restricted at all.
I don't think they had any. I had some good kids. I didn't have to worry too much.
See that, Norm?
Yeah.
We never heard that before, did we?
Things
Of course, I've
change.
heard a lot of things about the things that went on up on the hill that I didn't know anything about at the time.
Oh.
That was for my benefit, I guess.
What hill was
What
that?
hill was that?
What hill was this?
Behind the pines.
Oh.
When I had
Yeah,
my
up on the
car.
hill.
Oh. I didn't know you then.
That was in his
I'm
wild days.
innocent.
With his fancy car that he wouldn't let us go in.
What kind of car was that?
33 Chevy.
Paid for it with worm money.
I did. I caught worms and sold them to the people at the
See, there was a dam right
Two
down
dams
below
there.
the house.
Oh.
So
penny
the
a piece.
fishermen stopped at our house to get their worms.
You sold a heck of a lot.
Penny a piece.
You
I
did?
thought.
And
And how
were
much money did you
cheap.
raise?
$35.
35,000 worms. Or 3,500.
Did we get any of that money?
3,500.
Did we all give it to you?
I did all the work.
Did you? I remember
Did you guys
collecting
help
worms.
him?
We
They
got out
helped
and
him.
collected
Larry.
But he's the one that got the money.
They couldn't even get in the
He
car.
got
I probably gave him $1 or $2.
You mean and your sisters helped you with those words?
I guess so, dear.
Yes, we did.
I never heard that
Everybody did.
story.
We went down to the woods to gather them. Most of them, anyway. They weren't really good fishworms either.
No, they
Because
were
they
crazy.
come off of the hooks too easily. It's
But the
true.
fishermen didn't know that.
They didn't know. Yeah, those fellows came out from town, most of them, that came out there to fish on that bridge.
Oh,
They didn't know the difference anyway.
How much
We
was
must have something else to talk about.
Worm entrepreneurs?
Yeah.
How much was your first house? Do you remember? How much did it
Never owned
cost?
a house.
No,
Never
no.
has. Never did.
Never owned a house.
How much
Rented
was
all
your
the
rent?
It was only $25 at the Pines where we sold all the fishworms.
Was that what it was there?
I think so.
What was it in Kansas?
We worked on, we lived on the houses that, no, we didn't either. I was gonna say all the houses we lived in was where we worked, but we didn't. We lived out there by the schoolhouse. I don't know, I think that was $25. I'm not sure. I think it was. You had to walk
Quite a ways.
3/4 of a mile to school.
I thought it was 3 or 4.
But Buster said it was around, it was at least a mile. Remember when
Might
we
have
were
been a
out?
mile, I don't know. I know you
Wasn't
went across
3.
the hills, through the
Don't listen to her,
woods.
Trey.
As long as you get older.
Mhm.
As
always
longer
gets
as you
longer
get
as you
older,
get
yeah. Harder too, like
Uphill both ways.
carried a gun in case the Indians, you know, attacked us.
His teacher was one of my students, one of the ones that I taught when I taught school. His first teacher.
That was the one-room schoolhouse too, that we went to.
How old were you when you moved to Pennsylvania?
What, 8, Mom? 8 or 9, something like
Wow.
that, when we came to Pennsylvania.
Okay, so I think Dorothy had her 5th birthday when we came, after we got out here. Seems to me that she did.
Well,
So
that
you
was
must have been 9 or 10.
5 years older than Dorothy, so I was 10. We didn't come out then in 33, we came out in 35. Because I was born in 25.
35. Was 35 when Hazel was born?
I was born in 32, yeah, 35.
Well, that's when that was the first year we were here, 35.
Oh,
So it was
then I wasn't 1 year old. I thought
Forget
I was
about
1
you.
year old.
latter part of 34.
When did you come out, Mom? What year? I mean, what month? Do you remember?
I think it was the spring.
In the spring. And Hazel was born that fall then, right?
September.
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 Okay. Any final words to wrap the up the interview?
Wrap up the interview.
Okay, I'll get everybody on the video.
Oh, all the voices you would say.
Yes.
We've only got one person. Here's Aunt Helen. That's right. It's turning. Okay, everybody should be at eye level here. We know these people.
That pretty one is Norma.
Should say something about
Terry
your pretty
down here.
mother.
I don't know if I can get Terry. Well,
Hey.
Terry.
I got her. All right.
I think we get dizzy
It's a
watching it.
fast pen.
Yeah, pretty fast.
Woo, woo.
Erma?
Did you cut it off?